Welcome back, you guys. I'm Tassie, and today I'm having something I've been craving for. So this is a dish that I've had since I was younger, like in my teens. I don't remember eating it as a kid, actually, but maybe I have. I don't really know who actually taught me how to make this dish either, because I know it was my mom. But this is basically a lemongrass tomato chicken soup. And this is one of my absolute favorites. And I'll show you guys briefly just how I make it. And this is just white rice, and then this is some Thai pepper that I just ground up really quick. And basically, if I want this to be spicy, I'll just add it to it. So this is definitely like something that I crave every now and then. I haven't had this in over a year, maybe almost 2 years. Because the last time I made it was when I first moved into my old apartment. And so it's been that long since I've made it. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, and this tomato broth here, I'm just going to take this out. So I actually use drummies, and you can use whatever kind of chicken you want. And I didn't do a whole traditional cooking video on it because they take very long. I didn't have a whole lot of time today, so I just wanted to cook and eat, and then I had to edit and everything. So in here, it's basically it's just a lot of tomatoes. I just use Roma tomatoes. It's fairly inexpensive and cheap. And the drummies, I basically take off a lot of the meat. And then in a pan, you just fry up a little bit of oil with garlic, and then you add in the chicken. Now, the chicken doesn't have to be cooked all the way when you start to put in the tomatoes, because you have to simmer down the tomatoes until it creates this broth. And you don't add extra water to it because the tomato, it releases so much of the liquid, and you want the liquid to be thick. Now, before you close the lid, of course, pop in some lemongrass. I just need a bite. Yep. You just pop in some lemongrass, and you let it simmer for a long while until the tomato has basically evaporated mostly, and it's really soft now. And then towards the end, you can add a bit of fish sauce and green onions if you like. I know some people, they like to put cilantro in here. I didn't put any cilantro in here, but you can if you want to. You can also add ginger if you like, or bamboo. For me, this is such a simple type of stir fry. It turns into like this brothy soup. And if you don't like it as brothy as I do, just don't add as much tomatoes. And for like fish sauce and everything, it's really up to you how much. You can use more salt versus fish sauce. Or you can omit the salt and just use fish sauce. It's up to you. If you accidentally put too much fish sauce, it's too salty, just add water to it. Because it's like a lemongrass and tomato kind of a base, it's so good. And of course, I love to eat it over white rice. So I use drummies. Sometimes I use wings too. Oh, that's hot. I'm going to take out a couple of these so it can cool down a bit. Yeah, I like to use drummies only because, you know, I really like dark meat, and there's a lot of meat on the drummies. You can use wings, but with wings, chicken wings, there's going to be a lot more bones. That's why I opted for drumsticks. And there's a ton of the pieces of chicken in here too that I cut off from the drumstick. But you know, I don't know. I like to eat non-bones, so. I mean, besides Hmong egg rolls, this might be the closest thing to like a Hmong dish that I know of. A lot of times, I've mentioned this before, I don't really do a lot of Hmong traditional dishes, or as traditional as it gets. A lot of our food, it's like a variation of the different countries we've lived in, because Hmong people, we don't have our own country, but you know, like we were in China for thousands of years, and some of our language still has Chinese words in there, and then it moves all the way down to us traveling through Southeast Asia. So a lot of our cuisine, people would say it's close to like Laotian, Thai, even Vietnamese. It's really just the area that wherever the Hmong people lived, they would take a little bit of everybody's recipes. So this dish here, I actually was researching it, and I think it's Chinese. It's like a Chinese stir fry that's similar to this too. I don't really know though. I just know it's a dish that a lot of my Hmong friends, they actually eat and they make. I've never made this dish with another type of meat though. Oh, I was saying earlier that I forgot. I don't cook a whole lot of like as traditional as it gets Hmong food because a lot of the veggies, they don't have a word for it in English. So it'd be a little hard for me to explain to you guys like what this veggie is, where you might find it, what the English word for it is. A lot of people just don't know the actual word for it. Like there's this one dish I absolutely love. It's traditionally eaten by pregnant women after they've given birth, and they eat it for like 30 days. We just call it chicken and herb. But I love to eat it every now and then. And I don't know any of the veggie names. And when you go to the Asian market, especially like, if it's like a Hmong store or a Hmong grocery store, they actually have all the veggies bundled up and they just call it chicken herb. Like, that's just what the bag is called. And it's like a plastic bag somebody just bagged up themselves. So I also don't know what the herbs are called. Mm-hmm. When my boyfriend and I first started dating, he got really sick, and I actually made that dish for him. He liked it. He actually ate all of it. And that dish with the herbs, anybody can eat it. A lot of people, whenever they've had surgery or some kind of procedure done, they will eat it. Mm-hmm. I really can't remember who taught me how to make this dish. But I've mentioned before, like, my immediate family, we had a very Americanized diet. So we didn't cook a whole lot of, like, Hmong food beyond, like, egg rolls. Even then, we didn't make egg rolls often. My mom never made pho. She would make kapong though. And gaicha. Gaicha, it's this pork dish that they stew and stew and stew for hours and hours. And it's like really fatty parts. Like the pig feet or the pork belly. And then you eat it with rice. But then I was like 10 years old when I first had gaijiao. And I remember it specifically because the first time I had it, I didn't realize how much grease it was. I thought it was broth. So I poured a lot of that oil into my bowl and I ate all the oil because I thought it was broth because I didn't know what that dish was. You're supposed to drain the oil out and you're supposed to just eat the meat. And then I got incredibly ill. Like I thought I was going to die because I had consumed all this oil. It was really bad. But that's how I remember the first time I got gaijiao. And for my mom, I think it was just because she was always working. She didn't really cook for us. So we ate out a lot. I think one of my girlfriends who was older, we worked together and she taught me how to make this dish. I was like, I had my first house already. So I think I was like 19 or 20 when I learned how to make this. Don't judge me. Yeah, a lot of my cooking I actually learned from friends because you know, I didn't have a traditional upbringing like they did, so they actually were taught by their parents and grandparents how to cook certain dishes. And so even if I just like met them and we become friends, like my sisters and them would always ask me, how is it that I always got people to cook for me? And I'm like, because I ask them. So I asked a lot of my friends, like whenever I became friends with somebody, I always asked them about food. Like, what do they know how to cook? What do they think is really amazing that they know how to make? And then I would buy all the ingredients and have them come over. And we would spend hours making the dish over and over until I understood how to make it. And that's how I learned how to cook. Like, a lot of the more traditional Hmong food. I didn't know the English names to a lot of herbs either though. And believe me, I have asked a lot of elders what the herbs are called too. I don't really know. It's like they describe it only. And how they describe it's really funny. Because they'll tell you, like, it's green. And if it has the one with fur on it, it's not the one. And I'm like, what do you mean fur? But that's how they explain it to you. And so a lot of times they'll just say, well, just ask somebody that this is what you're trying to make. And then they'll just tell you which one it is when you get to the store. I have tons of very, very embarrassing stories of me approaching old Hmong ladies at grocery stores. My family and friends could go on forever on all the things that I say. So like in Hmong, when you see an elder, like who's a woman, when I see them, I freak out in my head because I think you're supposed to call them bo, because there's two terms for grandma. There's bo and netai, or maybe netai. Anyways, see, I'm already freaking out. So there's bo and netai, and there's one of those two terms you use when they're a stranger, but they're an elder female who could be a grandmother. So whenever I see them, I'm like staring at them because I'm running through my head. Is it bo that I call them or is it netai? So I'm like, and I'm slowly approaching them. One time, this grandmother, she had like her granddaughter with her, And she saw me. I'm like really tall for like a Hmong girl, okay? Because I'm like 5'5". And if I'm wearing heels, like my boots or something, I'm even taller. So all of a sudden, I'm like staring at her, and I'm like, oh my god, which one is it? Which one is it? And then she literally got scared. She took a stranger's cart and shoved it in between us. And then she told her granddaughter to run, and they both left me. So it's just, I probably come off really creepy that I scare them. But then, and plus like my Hmong isn't the greatest. But then I think most of them, they kind of like just forgive you if you call them the wrong one. Because I've called a lot of them po when I think you're supposed to call them nitai, you know? I don't know. It could be the other way around. I'm so sorry, you guys. This one time we were at, me and my brother, we were at the Hmong village market. And this guy, he told me, because I asked him, what is this meat? He had made something, and it was like his display. And I was like, oh, what is that? And then he said, ma'e. Ma'e. And I literally looked at him, and I was like, ma'e. I said it a few times, and then I looked at my brother, and I'm like, ma'e. Because I didn't know what kind of animal it was. So then I was like, oh, is it a horse? And the guy and my brother, they just start cracking up because they're like, Hmong people, we don't eat horse. It was supposed to be a goat. But I was taught that a goat is called the chi. So when somebody called it ma'e, I was like, that. I was thinking of the sound a horse makes, so I thought it was a horse. I have a lot of embarrassing encounters. One of my girlfriends, her mom owned one of these stalls. And she had hired this, it was like this aunt who married into the family. But she was actually from Thailand. So she couldn't speak any English. And I asked her how much was something. And she said, Jito doa. Which I was like, what? Because Jito is literally the number 56. So I was like, $56? I was like, no, that's not $56. So I kept asking her to repeat it over and over. And then I said, can you say it in English? Because she was a younger girl. And then she just looked at me and she just said no. And I was like, oh my God. Finally, some other patron comes along and she told me, she's saying that they're $5 or $6, depending on which one I get. And I'm like, oh my God. So sometimes I struggle really hard. I mean, who just goes around saying it's Jito Duan? Like, Ji Duan or Do Duan. Like, that's what you would say, okay? I'm like, who just says, okay, I'll get over it. But I sent an angry text to my girlfriend. I was like, who did you guys hire? I was there a long time. But I do notice I do this weird thing. When I'm around Hmong people, I will speak a lot of Hmonglish. Even though they can speak perfect English, for some reason I just go into Hmong. Like, I can explain something in a better way if I say it in Hmong. But I didn't notice I was doing that until my nephew, it was his birthday party this past weekend, and I went to go see him, and there was like a bunch of Hmong people there. I don't see a lot of Hmong people on a regular basis. And so I found myself like breaking into Hmong a lot when I was talking to them. And it's not like I have good Hmong either, so I don't know why. But like with my boyfriend, I'll say some terms in Hmong when I'm around him. Kind of like if I drop something, I'm like, oh yo, you know, like, because we say that in Hmong instead of saying like, oops, or oh my gosh, you know, it's like, I just like, oh yo, you know, it's just like, it just comes out. And my boyfriend, he totally gets it. Like, my boyfriend speaks Japanese, so, but he's white, but he can speak Japanese. So I think he understands that relation, that I'll say things like that. He's really, really good at linguistics. So I'm very careful about speaking in Hmong around him. Because he's picking up words already. He already knows pretty much what we're talking about based off, he looks at the way you talk, your tone, what you're pointing at, and everything like that. So he watches your body a lot when you're speaking. So he gathers what you're talking about. And he knows certain terms. Because in Hmong we call it mika, which means white people, or white. So he knows if you say the word mika, he's like, oh, they're talking about me. Oh my god, that was so good. I'm so full. Alright, I'm gonna go edit, and then I'm gonna go out to the lake, see my girlfriends, and enjoy the rest of my day. Thanks for watching, you guys. I am sweating up a storm. It is so hot.